3 inmates memorized the exact shape of a guard's key and crafted a perfect working copy of it. 12 prisoners escaped jail in Alabama using peanut butter. A Korean inmate used his yoga abilities to slide out of jail. All this and more. These are 10 prison escapes that were never explained. Alright, you want unbelievable prison escapes? Here's a story for you. On January 3rd, 1995, 3 inmates at HM Prison Parkhurst on the Isle of Wight in England broke out. Andrew Roger, Keith Rose, and Matthew Williams had been working in the prison workshop, which gave them access to sheet metal and tools. At some point, one of them got a good enough look at a guard's master key to memorize the shape of it. Memorized it so well, he was somehow able to cut a working copy out of it in the workshop. I mean, how in the hell? Was this like one of those big blocky cartoon keys, like just the 2 square shapes? Anyway, they also built a ladder, which they managed to keep hidden inside the prison. When the time came, they used both to move through the internal doors and barriers without immediately setting anything off. They got out of the building and headed to a nearby town with a specific plan: steal a small plane and fly to the mainland. Well, that didn't work. They couldn't get the aircraft started, so they ditched it and hid in a garden shed instead. They stayed there for 5 days, and then an off-duty prison officer spotted them, and they were arrested and brought back. In 1965, Lester Eubanks was convicted in Ohio for taking the life of a young girl named Mary Eileen Denier. He was originally sentenced to death, but that got reduced to life in prison in 1972. By late 1973, he'd kept a clean enough record that he was placed in an honor program for well-behaved inmates. Well, that program is exactly how he got out. On December 7th, 1973, Eubanks was taken out of the prison for a supervised Christmas shopping trip to a mall in Columbus. He wasn't in restraints, wasn't being closely watched. The group was basically free to just walk around the mall. So at some point, Eubanks just walked away. Why the hell wouldn't you? You're already in for life. You don't really have anything to lose. I mean, what genius came up with this insane idea? And guess what? He's never been found. The thinking is that someone was waiting for him, and he was picked up by an associate and driven far away, probably disappeared under a different name. Decades later, he's still on the U.S. Marshal's most wanted list. Glen Godwin was sent to prison in California after a violent robbery in 1980. He ended up at Folsom State Prison by 1987. Maximum security, so not easy to get out of, but he got out anyway. Godwin had access to a maintenance area where there were tools and less supervision. He cut through fence wire and got into a storm drain on the prison grounds, then crawled through about 750 feet of completely dark tunnel until he came out near the American River. A raft was waiting for him on the other side. He floated across and disappeared. Investigators found that parts of the route had already been cut before he got there. The whole thing was obviously very well coordinated. Someone on the outside helped set this up. He was gone before anyone even knew what had happened. In 1989, he was arrested in Mexico on weapons charges, but in 1991, he escaped from that Mexican prison too. After that second escape, he was never found again. Omid Tahvili was sitting in a maximum security facility in British Columbia in 2007, waiting to be extradited to the United States on serious organized crime charges. The extradition was moving forward, and it wasn't looking good for him. But on November 16, 2007, he paid his way out. He handed a correctional officer around $50,000 to help him escape. An officer dressed him in a janitor's uniform, walked him through the prison, and let him out the front door. The officer was arrested shortly after, because of course he was. There's like security cameras everywhere, and they see you walking him out? What the hell was this guy on? Anyway, Tahvili was already gone though. There were some indirect signs that he stayed in contact with people connected to his case, but nothing that showed where he actually went, and to this day, he is still at large. In 1958, Leslie Arnold was 16 years old when he took the lives of both of his parents in Nebraska. He got a life sentence, but after about a decade inside, he was considered low risk and had a bit more freedom in the facility. On July 14, 1967, Arnold and another inmate cut through the bars in a music room inside the Nebraska State Penitentiary. They reached the outer perimeter and climbed a 12-foot fence with barbed wire at the top. Once over, they were gone. The other inmate was caught the following year. Arnold was never found. They were both reportedly spotted in Chicago shortly after the escape, and that's where they split up. After that, the trail on Arnold just disappeared. Later turned out he lived under different names across the United States for years. Eventually moved abroad and ended up settling in Australia, where he lived quietly until he died in 2010. His real identity wasn't confirmed until DNA testing connected him back to the escape. Pascal Payet was a French inmate serving a long sentence for a violent armed robbery. He'd already broken out once in 2001, and while still on the run, helped plan a helicopter breakout in 2003 that freed other inmates. Because of all that, by 2007 he was under heavy surveillance and being moved between facilities constantly to make any further escapes all that much harder. Didn't matter. On July 14, 2007, 4 masked men hijacked a helicopter and forced the pilot to fly to the prison in southern France where he was being held. They landed right at the facility, got inside, reached Payet's unit, and pulled him out. The whole thing took minutes. They loaded him onto the helicopter and flew off. The pilot was luckily released unharmed after they landed. A huge manhunt went across Europe. Payet was caught in Spain in September 2007, about 2 months after the escape. He was brought back to France. So if you ever wanted a good reason to get into yoga, maybe this next story will convince you. In 2012, a South Korean man named Choi Gap-bok was being held in a police detention cell while under investigation for robbery. He'd spent a lot of time in custody over the years, and during that time, he'd kept up a serious yoga practice. His flexibility was just outstanding. On September 17, 2012, he used that to his advantage. At the bottom of his cell door was a small slot used for passing food through. He covered himself in lotion, got down on the floor, and just worked his way through it. Head and arms first, then the rest of his body. The gap was extremely tight, as you can imagine, but he made it through. And before he started squeezing through the slot like a snake, he'd arranged his bedding to look like he was still asleep, which brought him some extra time. Somehow he managed to get out of the police station without being seen. He stayed on the run for 6 days, stealing food to survive. On September 22nd, police found him on a rooftop, hiding inside a cardboard box. He was taken back into custody. In 2017, 12 inmates, 12, managed to break out of a county jail in Alabama using peanut butter. There was an exit door inside the facility with a number on it. One of the inmates smeared some peanut butter over the number and then called the guard over to open the door. The guard was a new guy, still learning the layout, so with the number obscured, he thought he was opening a cell door. He was actually opening the exit, of course, and once that door was open, all 12 just booked it out. They grabbed the orange prison uniforms and blankets and used them to get over the razor wire fence outside. Most didn't get far. 11 of the 12 were back in custody within about 12 hours. The last guy, Brady Andrew Kilpatrick, made it further. He crossed into Florida before being caught a few days later. David Sweat and Richard Matt were both inmates at Clinton Correctional Facility in New York, and both had access to parts of the prison most inmates didn't, including the kitchen, which meant tools were around. At some point while walking the prison grounds, they noticed that a speed bump out in the field was actually covering a pipe big enough to crawl through. They spent months getting ready. Matt started a relationship with Joyce Mitchell, a tailor who worked inside the prison. He used that to convince her to smuggle in hacksaw blades hidden inside frozen hamburger meat. With those blades and whatever else they'd gathered, they cut through steel walls over a long stretch of time. Before they left, they stuffed dummies into their beds wearing prison sweatshirts to fool the guards during the nightly check. They also decided to troll the guards with a note reading, "Have a nice day." The plan was for Joyce Mitchell to be waiting outside with a car, but she never showed, so they had to go on their own. After several days on the run, law enforcement caught up with them. Matt was fired at and killed. Sweat was wounded and taken back into custody. Joyce Mitchell later admitted that she had feelings for both men and had a physical relationship with Matt. She pled guilty, got sentenced to up to 7 years, and was sent to Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women. She's been denied parole twice. Finally, we had to discuss the most infamous prison escape in history. In June 1962, 3 men escaped from Alcatraz, a prison on an island in the middle of San Francisco Bay, surrounded by freezing water and some of the strongest currents on the West Coast. Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin spent months getting ready. Using makeshift tools, they slowly widened the ventilation openings in their cells, a little at a time so that nobody would notice. To cover what they were doing, they made fake heads out of soap, toilet paper, and real hair, and left them in their beds, so during nighttime checks, it looked like they were still asleep. On the night they left, they climbed out through the openings, got to the roof, and made it down to the water. They had a raft and life vests made from raincoats they'd stitched together. After that, nobody really knows what happened to them. Guards found out the next morning. Search teams went out across the bay and up and down the coastline. They found pieces of the raft in the water. They never found the men, though. Most people assume that they didn't survive. I mean, the water's freezing cold, the currents are brutal, and the raft was pretty janky. But who knows, maybe they actually made it. To this day, the case has never officially been solved. But that's been the video, and I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.